Good evening to Lamin Tamba's live Facebook. For today, I'm going to talk about a few things regarding the situation that Gambia is in today, the situation that the sub-region of West Africa is today. So I'm going to be very brief today. The program is going to be short and swift, and I want everyone, including ECOWAS, which is basically sitting and watching what's happening in the Gambia today and what's happening in Senegal without making a statement, without intervening. But ECOWAS will wait until there is a change of government, unconstitutional change of government, and they'll intervene. And what ECOWAS tend to do as well, instead of upholding the rule of law, they help whoever the wrong parties are in conflict. Again, this is why I keep saying ECOWAS is basically responsible for a lot of things that are happening in West Africa. So I'll leave ECOWAS towards the end. I'm going to talk about the Central Bank of the Gambia. I will talk about the TRRC, the Truth, Reconciliation, Reparation Commission of the Gambia. I'll talk about the Commission of Inquiry, otherwise called the Jana Commission. I'll talk about the crime rates in the Gambia right now and what's causing it. And I will also look at other matters happening in Barrow government, including Barrow's Meet the People tour, which has now become a farce. It's ridiculous. It's a comedy circus. It's a comedy show. Because nobody takes Barrow seriously anymore. So I don't know whether it's even worth people going out and listening to Barrow anytime he talks, because all Gambians of voting age, all adult Gambians, anyone over the age of 18 now knows that Gambia's president, current president, has got a sheer lack of capacity. Now, that's not a secret. Every adult in the Gambia now knows that Adama Barrow basically is just not up to the job. And the country is sinking as we watch him stay in power for no good reason. All right. So, I think that's a problem with Gambian citizens, us Africans in general. We have got problems. We make change look bigger than change it actually is. We'll be failing and we'll still be supporting a failed system because we fear this prospect of somebody coming that we don't know. Oh, if it's not this person who's going to run our country, who would make it better, who would run it better than the one we have right now, or we don't like that political party, so we're going to vote for a failed government. Some of these things we need to basically overcome. They are not helping us at all. All right? So we need to really change the way we look at politics, change the way we look at leadership in our country. In the old days, maybe there's a case to say, there were not too many educated Gambians to run the office of the president. There was a case for that, true, because in the old days, we didn't have that many university graduates in the Gambia. Gambia was not open to the world out there. Many Gambians were not very well informed. We didn't have a television station. We didn't have a university. We didn't have any internet. We weren't connected to the world at all before 1994. The few people who were lucky, whose parents were in the PPP government, the few people who were lucky, their family members were in the PPP government, and they received the odd scholarship to go and study in other countries. Those people knew a little bit of what was happening outside of the Gambia. They were slightly wiser, more informed. But after 1994, all of that changed. So what we have now is basically a large pool of individuals who can run the country far better than the catastrophe that we have in office right now called Adama Barrow. He is arguably the world's worst president as I speak to you right now. He's Gambia's president. He cannot think for himself. He cannot articulate. He is hanging out. He is hanging with people who are reputable criminals. His government cannot fight crime. They cannot fight corruption. They cannot develop anything. He builds roads. By the time he gets to about 20 kilometers of the road, the half of the road that they've already built has started breaking down. Yeah, it's been broken up. It's developing potholes. The quality of the roads is absolutely diabolical. But I'll come to that. Let me make this Facebook Live, and actually, let me start it with the central bank, because this is where the biggest problem is right now with our country. Let me start with the central bank, because this is crucial. This will make or break the Republic of the Gambia. And I'll give you some information that maybe some of you don't know. The Central Bank of the Gambia. So if you're tuning into my Facebook Live for the first time, my name is Lamin Tamba. I am Gambian born and bred. I support the Alliance for Patriotic Reorientation and Construction, which is one of the political parties in the Gambia, one of the major political parties in the Gambia. The party was in power between 1996 and 2016, 20 years in power. And the leader of the party and the president of the country was President Jammeh. All right, he's still the leader of the APRC legally. Now, I am a social democrat. I believe in social democracy. I believe in hard work, but the people who cannot find jobs, the people whose jobs are poorly paid, need to be assisted by the state, especially those who pay taxes. I believe in that 100%. I don't believe in 100% capitalism. I do not believe in 100% communism. So social democracy is fine. You work hard, you get rewarded. But those who are unfortunate, underprivileged, poor, can get some assistance from the state in terms of basic services. And those services can be free. Services such as medical and health services, services such as education, services such as accessible food and drinking water, services such as communication, transport, moving up and down, connecting the country, creating opportunities for jobs to be created, if you know what I'm talking about. Let's start with the central bank. What happened to the Central Bank of the Republic of the Gambia? Now, I'll give you a genesis and I'll give you a little bit of history of what's happened to the Central Bank of the Gambia. All right. In 2017, by April, Central Bank's own figures, by April 2017, Central Bank published that the former government of the Republic of the Gambia under President Jammeh, the APRC government, left the Central Bank with $75 million reserve in Gambia's reserve. $75 million. On top of that, Central Bank of the Gambia had an operating surplus. That means money they didn't expect to make. They had $100 million surplus. So looking at their operations, the budget of the central bank, the in and outs of the central bank, they had $100 million spare to spend on Gambia's development, to spend on other projects that will improve the situation of governance in the Gambia, either towards poverty alleviation or at least upgrade public services or change the manner in which the Republic of the Gambia is run. Central Bank's own publication, their own figures that they shared, they had $75 million reserve and they had $100 million surplus. And when I'm talking about dollars, in the context of this conversation, I'm talking about US dollars. I'm not talking about some Liberian dollars or some Jamaican dollars or some other basically weak currencies in dollars. I'm talking about the US dollars. The Central Bank of the Gambia had a surplus of $100 million, which is the Gambian currency. Gambian currency is dollars and bututs. Those are the denominations. Right? The US dollars are used in the Gambia for foreign trade, foreign exchange. I'm giving you a history so that you can know how Central Bank quickly collapsed in a lawless state. And yes, indeed, Gambia is today a lawless state, one of the hottest crime spots in West Africa, if not the highest per capita. Right. Gambia's crime rates, if you look at the population of the Gambian Republic, and you compare it with the crime rate, we are probably the hottest crime spot in the sub-region, if not the entire Africa right now. Yes, crime is high in Nigeria. Crime is high in South Africa. But if you look at their population and you're working out, the ratio will probably be worse in Gambia than many other places. The crime rates in the Gambia are at such a point that a lot of it doesn't even get to the police stations to be recorded properly. Because in the Gambia, we've got a culture of negotiating a truce or compromise before these crime or criminal activities get to police stations. It's quite rampant. That's how we resolve a lot of issues. We don't get to report them to the police station. The criminals in suits are getting away with murder. Literally, because the Ministry of Health has murdered 70 children. The unofficial figures are 83 children have been killed by the Ministry of Health of the Republic of the Gambia. So therefore, when we're talking about the criminals in suits are getting away with murder, it's literal. It's not a figure of speech. As far as Gambia is concerned, from Adama Barrow to the Minister of Health to the Chief Executive Officer of the Medicines Control Agency to the Chief Executive Officer of the Gambia Pharmacy Council. All these people are murderers in suits. They didn't kill the children directly, but their acts and omissions have led to the deaths of 70 children, avoidable deaths. Those are the official figures that the Barrow government gave. We believe hundreds of people, not just children, hundreds if not thousands of Gambian citizens might have died from kidney and liver-related ailments or failures. And this is indeed true, because myself, back in February this year, I published on my Facebook wall, and I stated that there is a high rate of death, high rate of deaths in the Gambia, resulting from kidney and liver failures. I wrote that in February this year, in 2022. And I said there are so many young Gambians and so many Gambian citizens dying as a result of their livers failing or their kidneys failing. And I asked questions as to what was causing it. But because kidneys and livers are quite linked to what we consume, there's an English saying that you are what you eat. You eat good, you look good, you feel good. You eat poor, you look poor, you get sick, you die. All right? So diet is very important. What we eat and what we drink is what we are. And it will show on your body, on your appearance, and your well-being as to whether you're living well or you're living poorly. Now, the Gambian concept of thinking somebody who is fat is living well, is enjoying life, is a flawed way of looking at a good living. A good living is somebody whose BMI is adequate. You're not too skinny and you're not too big. You have to be of an appropriate BMI. And the BMI is measured by your age, height, weight, and other factors. That's how they work out your BMI. And they'll tell you whether you are of that range of BMIs where you'll be declared fit or unfit, healthy or unhealthy. So I asked the question, why are Gambian citizens dying from liver and kidney issues? But I'll leave that until I get to the Minister of Health. I'll go back to the Central Bank of the Gambia so you guys know how the Central Bank of the Gambia went from $100 million surplus under President Jammeh, $75 million in reserve under President Jammeh for the Central Bank alone, to the government of the Gambia collapsing to 1.5 million, minus 1.5% of GDP growth rate, which is basically a recession and a depression under Adama Barrow within the space of 3-4 years, 5 years. So what happened to the central bank? I'll make it quick, right? They decimated those figures. The central bank reversed their staff remuneration, or in American way, remuneration they call it. All right? They reversed their allowances. They reversed their salaries. They gave their top board officials and top central bank officials loads of money. They increased their pay to an extortionate rate. Their allowances to a rate where an economy like the Republic of the Gambia should never be allowed to pay just one institution $600 or £600 per night for overseas travel. Any travel beyond the Gambian borders was paid at the board rate. Senior central bank officials $600 or £600 a month. Sorry, not a month, a night per central bank official. These are where the trouble started. So I'm giving you an idea of where the central bank problem started to where we are today. And I'll tell you where we are today, because what's happening now is actually criminal in the Central Bank of the Republic of the Gambia. And do not be surprised as to why certain crimes are happening in the Gambia right now. It is directly linked with the behavior of the administration that we have in office. And the administration we have in office under Adama Barrow has got absolutely no interest to change the living conditions of the Gambian poor, the Gambian sick, the general public. The masses of Gambian public will not get any benefit from the republic or from the government of Adama Barrow. It's not going to happen. So now, what happened to the central bank? Salary changes are one. They changed their salaries to pay their officials beyond what the government of the Gambia can afford. And dare I say, once they've changed those benefits, those allowances, those sitting allowances and travel and per diem allowances, once they change them, it encouraged the staff of the central bank to travel at every given opportunity. Even though the world has moved towards smarter ways of working, having meetings via Teams, having online training, having online inductions, having online consultations, the Central Bank of the Gambia and their officials are traveling worse than what we've seen before, because President Jammeh and this government were regulating travel outside of Gambian territory. President Jammeh would individually himself go through the travel itinerary, look at the list of people traveling beyond the Gambian borders, and scratch out names that were not needed in that particular journey. He'll scratch them out, he'll remove names, he'll add some names, he'll remove names, to a point where he's satisfied that this delegation that was going to a particular event was actually needed to be at that particular event in the interest of the Republic of the Gambia. So therefore, even the people who didn't like President Jammeh knew that a lot of stuff that he did in office was in the interest of the Republic of the Gambia. But we have seen the difference with Adama Barrow, who publicly stated in an interview that he didn't care about what his government officials were doing unless or until his position became a threat, until his position as the President of the Republic of the Gambia was threatened. Then he'll wake up and he'll take action and he'll sack people because they're telling him to resign to agree in agreement with the 3 years coalition mandate. Then Adama Barrow will get up and act. He said, oh, I didn't mind what my government officials were doing as long as my job was not threatened. But when my job became threatened, I decided to act. That was the date at which he sacked about 5 government ministers, many of them UDP, because they were telling him, you agreed with your coalition partners that you'll step down after 3 years. Therefore, the time is up for you to step down. Suddenly, Adama Barrow woke up and sacked all of them in one day. Before that, he was purging them one by one, depending on who appeared to be a threat to his presidential position. This is the difference between a leader and a president with just a title. President Jammeh was a president. He was a leader. He cared about the Gambian people. There's no argument in that respect. Even President Jammeh's adversaries, people who didn't like him, people who call him names, agree that President Jammeh acted in the interest of the Republic of the Gambia. First and foremost, and he kept saying it repeatedly, that for the sake of Gambia's peace and prosperity, stability, he was not going to compromise anything. He was going to be strict. He's going to be firm. He's going to take action to protect Gambia no matter what it took to do exactly that. But Adama Barrow doesn't care. The only time Barrow will act if he thinks his position is threatened, the position of president is threatened. Not when the masses of Gambian citizens are threatened by rampant crime rate, is threatened by invasion of Senegalese forces deep into Gambian territory and killing Gambian citizens. He doesn't care. Not when the Senegalese forces Navy is chasing Gambian fishermen out of Gambian water and refusing to allow Gambian fishermen to fish inside Gambian waters. He doesn't care. Not when the Chinese are damaging our pristine waters. Not when the Chinese are damaging our coastline. Not when our fellow Gambians are mining near Banjul, a city that's already below sea level, and flooding the sea, flooding the cities, rather. He doesn't care. Doesn't act in the interest of the interest of the nation. Barrow said it himself. Adama Barrow said he didn't mind what his government officials were doing as long as his position was not threatened. President Jammeh didn't mind being threatened himself, unless, of course, you're going to do it violently. Then he will repel your attack and deal with you emphatically. But President Jammeh didn't allow Gambian peace and security to be compromised. And before he left office, he said to Adama Barrow, please do not compromise with Gambia's security. But we go back to the central bank. What did the central bank do? Under Adama Barrow, it's a free-for-all. You come up with any stupid policy. He doesn't know it's stupid. Barrow doesn't know it's stupid because for those of you watching me for the first time, the current president of the Republic of the Gambia is arguably a failed high school graduate. There are questions as to whether he actually did attend high school. He said he didn't attend Muslim high school in the 80s. That's what he said. Nobody has seen his certificate. There's rumor that his certificate was forged. Well, I don't know that because I haven't seen a copy of it. We've tried to look for his classmates. We couldn't find his classmates. We tried to ask his teachers. We couldn't find his teachers. But anyway, the truth is, every Gambian citizen knows that the man has got no capacity. He has no academic backing. He has no experience of working in a structured and systematic, in a structured and organized civil service or institution. He is exactly what the French TV, France 24, said to him. Adama Barrow, you are basically an accidental president. That's what the French told him in 2017. And they were right. He was an accidental president. That man was not supposed to be Gambia's president. He became Gambia's president by a freak incident by which a lot of stuff, a lot of negativity was published, pronounced, shared, propelled against President Jammeh globally. And everyone thought President Jammeh was a monster. He was a brutal dictator. He was a murderer. He was a killer. He was a rapist. They called him all sorts of names. That was the image of President Jammeh that was portrayed worldwide. So therefore, anything that happened, even if it was illegal, as far as President Jammeh was concerned, even though his removal from office was unconstitutional, the foreign powers and the interest groups in the Gambia, who were mostly based overseas and headquartered in Senegal, Dakar, made the world believe that President Jammeh was a monster. He was bad for the Republic of the Gambia. He was a killer. That's the picture that they painted of the man. That's what they portrayed him of being, basically. So therefore, when President Jammeh appealed against the election result, instead of ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, the African Union, the United Nations, pressuring the Gambia to have a Supreme Court hearing, a trial, to investigate the merit of the election petition, they said, nope, we're not going to allow this. We're not going to allow the election petition that President Jammeh submitted to the Supreme Court to be heard. We want President Jammeh to quit the office of the president by all means necessary, or by any means necessary. We're not going to allow him to continue to be the president of the Republic of the Gambia because we want him out. They didn't say why. They said, oh, he conceded defeat and then he changed his mind. But that is just quarter of the story. Again, this is why I said the picture of the man that they painted was not the true picture of the leader that we had, the president that we had. Was not a true picture of what President Jammeh was all about. But because they painted this picture that President Jammeh was a monster and he couldn't stay in office longer than the 19th of January 2017, they decided we're not going to allow the election petition to be heard in accordance with the Constitution of the Republic of the Gambia. We're going to abrogate the Constitution. We're going to contravene it. We're going to frustrate his petition. We're going to put roadblocks. We're going to put obstacles in his way to ensure that the election petition of 2017 was not heard. So now, it's a free-for-all in Barrow government, and the central bank officials knew it. They knew Adama Barrow had no capacity. He had no intellectual pedigree to investigate a contract that's put before him. The guy cannot read, he cannot write, he cannot articulate himself in English. So what the central bank officials did was, and the Minister of Finance, they took documents to him for him to approve a revised pay grade for central bank officials. They rewarded themselves handsomely. That's what the central bank did. And if you do that, it's simple rules of economics. You cannot spend more than what you're generating. You cannot spend more than your revenue. You cannot spend more than you earn. You cannot spend more than you have. Because if you do that, there's always one result. And that you and your institution will be doomed. If you earn $15 every month, you cannot go around spending $20, $25, $30. Because you're going to go bankrupt. That's why the Gambian economy is bankrupt right now. Totally bankrupt. And we get there. I'm just bringing people who are not in tune with Gambian politics. I'm taking them with me systematically to show them where the problem started. So what was $100 million surplus which was left at central bank by President Jammeh's government? You see the Jana Commission and their findings. It was all rubbish. President Jammeh left the central bank with $100 million surplus, extra money that the bank didn't need. But the bank got that money through operations. $100 million. The central bank also had $75 million in reserve left behind by President Jammeh and the APRC government. That's the fact. That's what happened. So now, the central bank officials decided to reevaluate their jobs, to revise their pay grade, and revised it and paid themselves handsomely. Increased the allowances, increased the board sitting allowances, increased the travel allowances, they increased their salaries to a point where the central bank had to come up with something to be able to sustain that level of spending. And the central bank went broke. The economy of the Gambia as of last year was growing at minus 1.5%. If an economy contracts by 3 consecutive quarters, it's a recession. So when President Jammeh left, Gambia was not in recession. Gambia was in a healthy place, despite the fact that we had 2 crop failures and Ebola about 2-3 years before President Jammeh left. President Jammeh's economy was still growing at a decent rate of 4-point-something% of the GDP. Adama Barrow's government came. They lied to the people that the growth went up to 6-point-something% of the GDP. That was 2017, 2018. But at that point, the economy wasn't growing. What they did have in 2017, 2018 was a lot of goodwill from their donors internationally. The EU immediately pumped them $370 million, euros rather. That's what the EU gave to Adama Barrow's government, 370 million euros straight away. And the EU gave them another 75 million euros, and they gave them another sum of money. The World Bank gave them a lot of money. The IMF gave them a lot of money. The African Development Bank gave them a lot of money. The United States government gave them a lot of money. Adama Barrow's government basically incinerated all of that via corrupt practices. It was a free-for-all. You take how much you want. You take the amount you want anytime. Because you know what happens? If you do not lead by example, if the people below you know that they've involved you, they've dirtied up your hands, they've muddied you up, and that you'll have no moral fortitude or moral courage or any moral high ground to expose them or to punish them or to arrest them and charge them for economic crimes, they are going to get away with murder. So what did they do to start with? They began to corrupt Adama Barrow straight away upon him assuming office. They involved him. They built a new mansion for him in his village. They sent his children to American universities and colleges. They gave him lots of vehicles, new vehicles. Some of them he gave to the MPs, bribed Gambian MPs basically with brand new vehicles. And a lot of money in brown envelopes. The brown envelopes became the subject of butt jokes in Gambian politics because Adama Barrow and his government did it out there plainly before everyone. Adama Barrow himself spoke about it. The MPs spoke about it. They didn't hide it. So the central bank was paying its own staff. Central bank was spending a lot more than what was coming into the central bank from central bank's operations. When did the warning signs start? Well, the warning signs for the current economic collapse started last year. Yes. In fact, no, it didn't start last year. It started in 2018 because I wrote about it in 2018. After they spent the surplus that President Jammeh and APRC left at the central bank, after they depleted our reserve, $75 million reserve, the warning sign started in 2018 when Adama Barrow and his cabinet traveled to London to the Commonwealth Heads of State Summit. They ran out of foreign exchange. There were no dollars on Gambian soil for them to be able to travel, to hire private jets, to hire flights, to hire other paraphernalia or material that they needed to be able to travel to London, including hotel bookings. They couldn't do it because the government of the Republic of the Gambia ran out of foreign currency. That was 2018. They masked it. They hid it. They kept it closed. And people thought, okay, they've sorted it out. We've got Forex. No problems. They traveled to London. They came and did what they had to do with their masters, the people who installed them, the people who imposed them on Gambian people illegally. That's when the trouble started. By 2019, the prices of commodities started rocketing, and we wrote about it. The prices of commodities started skyrocketing before coronavirus came. Gambia's tourism sector started dying before coronavirus came. So the tourist season in 2018 was very poor. I was in the Gambia in 2018 December. And I wrote about this again, and I said, I've never seen December and January, Christmas period, and New Year's period in Senegambia Strip, the highest, most densely populated area in terms of tourism in the Gambia, Senegambia Strip. I've never seen it this lonely, ever, growing up in the Gambia. I've never seen it in that state before. And I wrote about it. People thought at the time, he was doing politics. That famous phrase that they used to throw at me, his butt hurt. He is bitter that President Jammeh left the Gambia in 2017. I didn't know President Jammeh. I didn't work with him. I have no relations with him. And I was not dependent on President Jammeh's government. I had nothing from President Jammeh's government or the man himself. They kept saying, his butt hurt. He's not happy that President Jammeh's departure didn't change my economic status. It didn't change my professional status. It didn't change my family's economic status. Didn't change their professional status. Because my family didn't benefit from the PPP government. Didn't benefit from the APRC government. And my family is not benefiting from the Adama Barrow government right now. Thank God for that, because we are working hard and depending on ourselves and doing the little that we can for ourselves. But that's when the central bank's problem started. The prices of commodities started skyrocketing in 2019. And in fact, Adama Barrow was interviewed in 2019. They said to him, do you know that a bag of rice and a bag of sugar, the prices of both have gone through the roof? The prices are increasing significantly. He said, no, if you go to some stores in the Gambia here, you'll find a bag of rice for $900. So people should have, you think Gambian journalists, if they were competent, they would have asked him, which shop in the Gambia or which store in the Gambia will you go to and find a bag of rice and a bag of sugar for $900? Because there were none. At that point, a bag of rice was about $1,300, $1,400 in 2019. But Gambian journalists are short in capacity, just like Adama Barrow himself. Instead of pressing him on it to say, okay, can you give us any shop that you know that's selling a bag of rice for $900? Because Adama Barrow and his government promised that they were going to reduce the price of a bag of rice to $500. They promised they were going to reduce a bag of fertilizer to $250. That's the promise that they made in 2016. That as soon as they take over, they'll give our youths free visa to travel to Europe and go and hustle. Because going to Europe or going to the United States or going to the West in general was like an achievement for any Gambian youth, I think for African in general. So they thought, oh yeah, we're going to give you free visas to travel to the West. We're going to reduce a bag of rice, the price of it, to $500. A bag of fertilizer, the price of it, to $250. Central bank's problem started since 2019. They revised their pay grade in 2018. By 2019, they were paying themselves more than what central bank can afford, more than what the accountant general can afford, more than what the Gambian government can afford, because Gambia government revenue collection on the GRA went down significantly in 2019 to about 11 billion from 13.5 billion that President Jammeh's government was generating in terms of revenue. In 2016, our revenue fell year on year up to about 11 billion by 2019. Coronavirus came in 2020 and 2021, affected it. It dropped down to 10 point something billion dollars. The problems of central bank were escalating. The prices of commodities were skyrocketing. These issues happened before coronavirus came. In fact, in November 2019, the IMF warned the Barrow government that they've reached their debt ceiling, that they couldn't borrow any more funds because the government was in serious trouble. The only reason the IMF allowed the Adama Barrow government to borrow money was because of coronavirus. They had to create a quick credit facility to be able to give to governments across the world who didn't have enough money to be able to fight the pandemic. You think that money will help the government of Adama Barrow fight the pandemic? No. Adama Barrow and his minister embezzled those COVID funds. $148 million is gone missing, according to the Minister of Health. Adama Barrow didn't sack him, but I know why Adama Barrow didn't sack him. It's quite obvious. The $148 million didn't go missing. They know what they did with money. Ask yourself where Adama Barrow got money from to run his presidential campaign in 2021, to buy 100 to 200 pickup trucks for his officials and his political party to be able to run the presidential campaign of 2021. Where did the money come from? How can he just lose $148 million and still be in your position as a Minister of Health? But anyway, the central bank's problems started. So this year, the problems escalated because Gambia's economy has collapsed totally. Take it from me, I'm telling you this. We are in a big, big mess. And I'm worried about the future of our country. They're going to go and borrow loans again to extricate ourselves from this entanglement. But that is akin to digging yourself in deeper. We are sliding deeper and deeper into that deep, dark abyss. It's an abysmal situation that we found ourselves in. Our central bank is in deep trouble. Our economy is in deep trouble to a point where in September or October, the government of the Gambia ran out of forex completely. They had no foreign exchange, nothing to use to help the traders import our basic commodities, to a point where the government of the Gambia said they're going to get involved in retail business, importing goods and selling them to retailers or wholesalers in the country, something that a government shouldn't be doing. But the government of the Gambia had to come up with something to cover this total economic collapse. We ran out of foreign exchange. Completely, they had no dollars or euros left in the central bank of the Gambia or any other bank. They had to go and borrow money from elsewhere to be able to carry out government business, to be able to import basic commodities for the public's consumption in our republic. The problems of the central bank started. So what did they do? They went and raided our foreign reserve, something which used to be Adama Barrow's sing-song, his most favorite beat. Oh, we came and improved our import cover from the 1 month that Jammeh left us to 3 months. Oh, when we came in, our import cover was just 1 month. We increased it to 3 months. But under Jammeh government, our economy never went into recession, never grew below 2.9%. And it went to 2.9% in 2011, 2012, towards 2014, because of 3 major factors. Actually, 4 major factors. But the 2 factors were split between 3 seasons. And I'll name those factors. The major factor was the economic crisis, global economic crisis of 2008 to 2012, when the whole world's economy was in tatters. It affected the Gambian government, but we never went into recession. Then came the crop failure of 2010 or 2011. And then came Ebola in 2012, 2013, 2014. The Ebola epidemic that hit Sierra Leone, Guinea, Liberia, some parts of, I think Senegal had some cases, Guinea-Bissau had some cases. Gambia, luckily, didn't have any case, but we had to put measures in place to stop Ebola being imported into the Republic of the Gambia. But if it did hit the shores of the Republic of the Gambia, President Jammeh had controls in place to be able to combat it. When he found out that we're actually in a very good place because Gambia's primary health care was absolutely top-notch. And I'm proud to be a former employee of Gambia's primary health care as a public health officer. Now, President Jammeh's economy never went into recession. The slowest growth was about 2.9% of the GDP. Adama Barrow's government, as of last year, was minus 1.5%. At the current rate, God knows where we are. Maybe the figures cannot even be tabulated anymore. That's how bad it is. That's what the government of Adama Barrow brought us. Serious problem. So, September, October, we ran out of forex. October, November, Central Bank of the Gambia raided our foreign exchange foreign reserve because we ran out of currency to be able to run government business. The government of the Gambia became totally broke. They had to go to our foreign reserve, raid the foreign reserve, take some money out of it, bring it to the Republic of the Gambia to be able to run basic services. How did they do that? We never know because they don't tell us the truth. Then a week or two later, they said, oh, the Central Bank of the Gambia has been hacked by hackers from somewhere, ransomware. And the hackers are demanding US dollars $2.5 million in ransom payment, or else they'll compromise the data of the Central Bank of the Republic of the Gambia. Central Bank came out and said, yes, indeed, we were hacked. But was this actually hacking from an external sinister group? Or was this an inside job in the Central Bank of the Republic of the Gambia, trying to cover their tracks of destruction, overpayment, corruption, extorting funds from the Central Bank of the Republic of the Gambia? Were these genuine external hackers, or were these Gambian public officials in suits who are hacking the central bank by themselves in order to transfer US dollars 2.5 million to an account overseas where they can go and sit and share the money between themselves? This happened in 2018, where they transferred $2.8 million to a bank account in the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States of America in 2018. And when they asked the former finance minister, Ahmad Sane, whose account was this that $2.8 million was transferred to in the United States of America? He said he doesn't know, but he'll try and find out. Is this normal for a government to transfer 2.8 million US dollars to a private account at the Federal Reserve Bank in the United States, in New York? He said, yeah, these things are normal. But whose account was it? Could this have been the money that they were paying into Adama Barrow's account in the United States of America to send his children to American universities and colleges, to buy houses in the United States of America, allegedly? So the Central Bank of the Gambia said, oh, we were hacked. Yes, they did take some data out of our servers. For those of you who don't know, Central Bank has got a specific server. Most banks, central banks in the world, have got their separate operating systems from other private banks. For security reasons, they make sure their servers are watertight, bulletproof, bomb-proof, and they're independent of other banks and other institutions, so that there'll be no tampering with the servers of the central bank. So who then managed to get into the central bank's servers, hacked them, and took the data? Was it 2 terabytes of data or 1 terabyte of data that the hackers took? Was this actually an external hacking, or was this criminals in suits who work for the Central Bank of the Gambia, saying that Gambia Revenue Authority is losing millions to people's private entities, saying that the Gambia Ports Authority is losing millions to people's private entities, saying that the Fisheries Ministry is losing millions to private entities, saying that the National Water and Electricity Company is losing millions to private entities, saying that every other department under Adama Barrow is losing millions to private entities. Did the central bank officials actually come up with an elaborate plan to try and pretend that there was an actual hacking at central bank? One, to siphon money to their own private accounts and share it later. Or, two, to confuse the Gambian public to the fact that they ran out of foreign exchange. Secondly, they were hacked and they paid the ransomware people. But then they had to come with a salary overpayment or underpayment, and some people were unpaid. So 3 scenarios happened this week. Gambia civil servants, security and civil servants and security services were not paid last week. Their pay was expected on Friday, the 25th of November, which is the date by which most civil and security services get paid. 25th of every month. They didn't get their pay last week. Imagine how difficult the Republic of the Gambia is. Imagine how hard the country is. How expensive it is to live on a day-to-day basis. Last week on Friday, the 25th of November, the civil and security services of the Gambia were expecting their salaries. The salaries didn't go in. On Monday morning, I published it. Then hurriedly, the Central Bank of the Republic of the Gambia on Monday evening, after we shared the fact that they haven't paid our security services, that they haven't paid our civil services, they hurriedly tried to pay people's salaries on Monday night. That's Monday, the 28th of November. They tried to pay government workers, security and civil. They overpaid people by $3 million. So somebody who was getting $3,000 a month in salaries, or $5,000 a month in salaries, or $10,000 a month in salaries, suddenly got alerts on their phones, salary payment alerts, around about 2000 GMT, 8 p.m. at night, to say, we had an alert from the central bank, from my bank, GTB or EcoBank, the private bank at which I'm banking. I just had an alert to say that the Gambia government has paid me, but they paid me $500,000 instead of $5,000. And they did this to 27,000 employees of Gambia government. Were overpaid. Some were underpaid. Some were unpaid. That's what the central bank and the accountant general of the Republic of the Gambia did. Was this a genuine mistake? No, it wasn't. Was this a deliberate and calculated move? I suspect. Was this a means of covering up their tracks? Provided that knowing fully well that we ran out of foreign exchange, and number two, they said they were hacked. Was this a deliberate ploy to confuse the Gambian public, to try and confuse the figures at central bank, so that one day, when accountability is brought about, they can say, well, it was because of the salary overpayment. Some people, unfortunately, successfully withdrew their money before the managing directors of private banks were able to freeze their accounts. This is what they did. They overpaid some people by 3 million, 2 million, 500,000, 800,000. Some people apparently successfully withdrew the money because their banks did not freeze their accounts. Their banks did not withhold withdrawals or movements between bank accounts between Monday night and Tuesday morning. Gambia government via the central bank have lost billions of dollars in this scandal. Could they have done this deliberately in order to tell the Gambian public that we lost this X amount of money. We didn't pay the ransomware, the $2.5 million that they were asking for. Or they actually paid the people who hacked the accounts. And then they had to overpay salaries and underpay and unpay staff to confuse the figures so that it will cover the fact that they took $2.5 million US dollars and paid the hackers with it. Or could it be the hackers who took control of our personal data, who actually deliberately manipulated the figures, salaries, so that Gambia government can lose the money because Gambia government or the central bank refused to pay them the money that they demanded in order to release data? Could the hackers have played that game of costing the Gambia government billions of dollars because the government of the Gambia or the central bank refused to give them the 2.5 million US dollars that they demanded? What is at play? What is going on in the Republic of the Gambia? Do we have God-fearing people in our country? Do we have people who actually have conscience in our government? Do we have people who have sympathy for the sick, the poor, the underprivileged in our country who are dying on a daily basis because Gambia government cannot afford to buy simple, legitimate, genuine, effective medication for our people? Children, girls are dropping out of school, something that didn't happen since 1997. Education is collapsing. Security is collapsing. Agriculture is collapsing. Fisheries is collapsing. Energy sector is collapsing. Revenue generation has dropped, and they've tripled the national budget of the Republic of the Gambia now. Gambia Revenue Authority, GRA, is generating about $10 to $11 billion a year. But the new budget for 2023 is about $32 billion, 3 times more than the government of the Gambia generates. Where do they think they're going to get the rest of the money from? But the central bank had to create something to cover their tracks, had to create something to cover the figures, to manipulate the figures, to kind of confuse the figures, so that the average person who is not within their cabal will not be able to know how much damage has been done to our economy, either from overpayments, negligence, corruption, or the payment of ransomware, or basically the overpayments of salaries. One of them, they're covering corruption, or they paid ransomware, or they genuinely overpaid Gambia government workers. But the central bank is not telling us the truth. The central bank said, oh, we overpaid 27,000 employees of Gambia government. That they've successfully put in measures to recover all the overpaid sums. Yet I'm seeing citizens sending me in their inboxes, sending me messages saying, no, some people did actually manage to withdraw the money because all these measures have got loopholes. You cannot freeze all accounts at the same time. It can happen, but it's going to take time. Before they did that, some people managed to take lots of money or move money from their accounts, from one account to the other, to a point where even if the bank froze your main current account where your salaries are paid, you've already moved your money to another account, and the government of the Gambia cannot recover such funds. Are we on the verge of seeing a total economic collapse? Of seeing another Sri Lanka? Is that where we are now? Like Argentina? I think so. I think there's a lot of trouble on the way. There already is. Barrow government is broke. Barrow himself is broke because his Meet the People tour, apparently he could only spend 10 million. He didn't have any other money to spend because Gambia government has run out of money. The main source of foreign exchange is the tourism industry. That's dead. So if you take me out of the equation, and many other Gambians living abroad who send money to the Republic of the Gambia, the government of the Gambia cannot raise adequate foreign exchange to be able to support our basic services for a month in the Republic of the Gambia. That's where we are now. They run out of forex. There's no money. Because it used to be tourism sector bringing in foreign exchange, remittances from Gambians abroad, and agriculture. All three sectors, only remittances from Gambians abroad are still contributing almost exactly the same figures or increased figures now that we have to increase our monthly budget of money that we send to our families in the Gambia. So now, some of us sitting abroad, even though we are employed here, we are earning good wages, we are also being affected by the economic situation of the Republic of the Gambia. Because previously, where I had to send £100 to my family to live for a month, I have to triple that to £300 a month for my family to be able to afford a decent standard of living. So not only is it affecting Gambian people who are unemployed, 60%, 70% unemployment, it's also affecting me that's living abroad because I have to look after my family and I have to look after 10 other families plus lots of student tuition fees that I have to pay, medical bills that have to be paid, energy bills that have to be paid. The Central Bank of the Republic of the Gambia, from what I can see, what's going on in there is an inside job. They're not going to escape it. Oh no, they're not going to, they can conceal it just for now. This is the Central Bank of the government, I think, at play. They're playing games with the Gambian public. I don't think what's going on is a genuine hacking job that's caused the Central Bank this amount of havoc. But if it is, Central Bank is not admitting paying the ransomware guys. They said, oh, we were migrating our servers, we were migrating our systems. The systems don't lose their heads when you're migrating them, because before you migrate them, you would have backed up your data. It's like you having a mobile phone, iOS or Android, and you have an iCloud account or a Samsung account or a Google Mail account or a Google account. Just because you changed phones from Samsung to Apple doesn't mean when you log onto your Google account on that new phone and you restored your data, the phone doesn't automatically change Mr. Chore's digits from 3 to 8 or add 0 zeros at the end of his phone number or add 0 zeros at the beginning of his phone number. No. The data is already backed up. You're restoring it. So migrating servers or changing the operating software or system that they're using is not going to cause this amount of havoc that our civil and security services are suffering from. The central bank is lying to the Gambian public. But one day we're going to find out all of these, and the people behind it will go to jail. Economic crimes, fraud, theft, criminality. That's what's going to happen. If you back up your data and you change your systems or you migrate your servers, all you have to do is restore data. You're not going to lose the bank details of staff. That only happens when the servers basically, when the servers crash. It doesn't happen when you're migrating or changing operating software or systems. It happens when it crashes sometimes. But even with that, if the data is backed up, which I expected a major and important, significant institution like the Central Bank of the Gambia to have backup data, backup servers somewhere. Even if it crashes, they should be able to restore data once their servers have been repaired or replaced. Now, to come around and tell people, oh, we're just switching our systems around, and that's why the bank digits suddenly changed. If you put 3,000 in Mr. Chore's payment account, just because you moved software, or you changed software, or you migrated your servers, doesn't mean those servers are suddenly going to think, oh, Mr. Chore was being paid before I moved from State House to Quadrangle, or basically State House to Gamstar building. Suddenly, Mr. Chore's 3,000 has to change to 3 million. Or suddenly, Mr. Chore's bank digits of 3.131678910.7 whatever the bank account is, suddenly those digits do not change. That's not how it works. Brothers and sisters, Central Bank and Adama Barrow government need to come and tell us the truth. We need to know where our money went, why they ran out of foreign exchange, why they overpaid 27,000 staff members. So you're telling me basically the server basically lost its head completely. Totally. Because if it was 10 people, 1,000 people, I can understand. 27,000 people's payment details were messed up. So, is this a deliberate ploy by employees of the central bank? Or was this the hackers who manipulated with people's figures because they're angry that they were not paid? Or they paid the hackers and they're trying to cover their tracks, not to show to the Gambian public that they took out $2.5 million to pay the hackers. So therefore, manipulate the figures, confuse the Gambian public, cover your tracks, jumble up the payment details, and then we can blame overpayments of November salaries for the loss of money that they took and paid to the hackers. They're not telling us the truth. But I'm going to move on because we all know what's going on. We will not know the full truth. But my feeling is that the central bank is in a serious economic crisis. By extension, the government of the Republic of the Gambia is in serious crisis to a point where they couldn't pay the riders for health who run Gambia's ambulance services. They owed them about $3 million and other unpaid expenses. To a point where the riders for health who run the ambulance services for the Republic of the Gambia had to ground their fleet. They cannot run their ambulance services anymore. How can Adama Barrow go and meet the people's store, spend $10 million, but cannot pay the ambulance services to be able to help the Gambian population? Did central bank pay the ransomware people $2.5 million US? How could they not have paid riders for health to continue to run our ambulance services? What is going on? The Republic of the Gambia is in a total economic decadence. We are collapsing. The reserve that the APRC government left at the central bank was quickly decimated. Adama Barrow took our debt level from 38 billion, or sometimes they call it 38 billion. Sometimes they come around and says 48 billion. Let's say, for the sake of today's argument, that President Jammeh left Gambia government with $48 billion debt after 22 years of being in power. Adama Barrow's government has put Gambia at $80 billion debt level in the space of 5 years. 80 billion. So that means Adama Barrow's government added 32 billion. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, because I think when Jammeh left, initially in 2017, they said President Jammeh left us with a debt level of $38 billion. And then when they started their crookery, they said, oh, he left us with $48 billion. But let's suppose, for the sake of this argument, President Jammeh left us with $48 billion in debt after 22 years. So if you divide that, it's about 2.1 billion average a year of debt that President Jammeh left us, if they're telling the truth. I know they're lying. They're trying to blame President Jammeh for every single melee that occurred under Adama Barrow. That's what they do. So let's suppose President Jammeh left us with 48 billion. Adama Barrow has taken us within the space of 5 years to a debt level of 80 billion. So it's increased 32 billion. So if you divide 32 billion by 5 years, we're going into the 6th year in this coming financial year, the one they budgeted 32 billion for. And the 32 billion, can you believe it, is to increase Adama Barrow's payment and the Speaker of the National Assembly and other people, rather than spending it on health, on security, on education, on agriculture. No, they increased the salary of the Adama Barrow, the Speaker of the National Assembly, the MPs and other people. Not our education, not our health, not our agriculture, not our security, not our maritime activities. No. Again, It's self-serving. People have gone in to enrich themselves because they know Adama Barrow has absolutely, and he's gonna sign that budget. He's not gonna say to them, no, this is unconscionable. He's not gonna say that. He's gonna sign it because the man cannot read, he cannot write, he cannot articulate himself. He has got no critical thinking. So therefore, if President Jammeh left us with 48 billion after 22 years, if you divide that, it's 2.1 roughly billion a year debt, which by any economic standard across the world is remarkable. Even with that, he left us with $100 million surplus at central bank and $75 million US dollars in reserve. If you divide the 32 billion that Adama Barrow added in the space of 5 years, divide that by 32 billion, that's 6.1 billion roughly a year debt. So Adama Barrow has tripled our debt level in the space of 5 years. If Adama Barrow, if we mistakenly keep this guy for another 5-10 years, we will reach a debt level that we've never seen before, and our dollars will be worth nothing because the dollars is today $71 per pound. Yes, $71 per pound. When President Jammeh was leaving, it was $54 per pound. Is the central bank trying to cover their dirt? They're trying to cover their corruption? That's what they're doing. Adama Barrow is taking loans at a rate of 6.1%. 6.1 billion, dollars. President Jammeh was at 2.1 billion after 22 years, yearly debt. If their 48 billion figure is to go by. If we reduce that to the 38 billion which they first published, that Jammeh left us in, 38 billion, you divide that by 22 years, that's about 2.0 something a year. Barrow has tripled that. Give Barrow another 10 years, we'll be talking about Barrow indebting Gambia, or putting Gambia in further debt, I should have said, of about 10 billion a year. Our dollars will be worth nothing. Our economy will be worth nothing. Our goods in the market will be so costly, we can't afford it. Our money will be worth close to nothing. What costs $10 today? Basically, I don't even know whether there's a commodity in the Gambia today that costs $10. Fish that used to cost $10, 3 of them, is now $100 and something for a bunch of 3. I saw somebody sharing a simple bucket or a bowl of fish for $3,500 2 days ago. A small bowl of fish in the Gambia. $3,500. Something that people used to buy for $100, $200, $300 at most is now costing $3,500. I couldn't believe it. I think her name was Fatima. Said, look at this bowl. I just went to the market and I bought this for $3,500. Incredible. The central bank has put us in a difficult situation. But again, this has a direct link with the crime rate that we're seeing in the Gambia right now. We saw 2 days ago, a European tourist couple went to the Gambia. They got bludgeoned, bloodied up, nearly killed. According to sources, the elderly European couple lost 8,000 euros and $40,000. Bludgeoned, nearly killed, just because a bunch of guys went in there and wanted to take their money. They wanted to live a life they cannot afford. And they cannot afford the life in the Gambia. That's no excuse for committing crime. That heinous crime must be investigated and the perpetrators of that crime brought to book. That has to happen. But is the Gambia police force going to be able to find out who these culprits are? No, because Gambia police force has got no capacity to fight crime. They don't have vehicles. They don't have personnel. They don't have any equipment. If a crime is committed today in the Gambia, and you call the Gambia police to come and investigate it in real time. They cannot get there in real time unless you pay for a taxi yourself to transport them from the nearest checkpoint or nearest police station to your house, and then you have to pay for the same taxi or another taxi to take them back to their checkpoint or police station. This is the current state of the Gambia police force. They cannot investigate crime. In fact, the crime rate is so huge, it's impossible for them to investigate it without adequate mobility, adequate facilities, camera systems. They can't. But right now, if you call the Gambia police force and say to them, I have got a burglar in my house, they have got a knife or a gun with them, the Gambia police force cannot come. You have to send a taxi to pick them up, bring them to your house, a taxi to take them back to the station or the nearest checkpoint. This is the quality of government that we have in the Republic of the Gambia under Adama Barrow. And he doesn't care. People are complaining on a daily basis. Adama Barrow said he's the most informed Gambian on Gambian soil. He doesn't care. He's not going to do anything about it. Because he said he doesn't care about what his government officials are doing, what's happening in the country, as long as his position is not threatened. That's what the President of the Republic of the Gambia said. And he said, when you go on political rallies or to meet the people tour, which I genuinely call meet the people and lie tour, because he said it's okay to lie to the people when you go on tour or political rallies. So Adama Barrow currently is on meet the people and lie tour, and the people are refusing to come out to his rallies, to his meetings. People are refusing to come out because Gambian public are fed up. Just yesterday, we've seen the riots in Bakau, where the people of Bakau wanted to burn the police station because a native of their village was killed, some of his body parts taken, missing, and they cut him into pieces, put him in a bag and dumped him in a forest, thinking that nobody was going to discover his mutilated body. I pray for Omar Sonko's family, and I pray for his deceased soul. May Janatul Firdausi be his resting place. May heaven be smiling upon his arrival in the life hereafter. Omar Sonko is the native of Bakau, who was basically killed. Some of his body parts went missing, killed, cut to pieces, put in a bag and dumped in a forest. Luckily, a day later, somebody discovered his mutilated body in a forest in the Gambia. The police were called, the medical services were called. They identified his body as that of the missing person, the person who was reported missing the day before. Killed, mutilated, dumped. This is not an isolated case. This is the fourth or fifth time a Bakau person, or in Bakau women's gardens, or in Bakau cemetery, that somebody has been exhumed after being buried and body parts taken, that dead bodies were found in Bakau women's gardens, that dead bodies were found dumped somewhere after suspicious activity, and some body parts going missing. It's rampant. Before 2017, young or old, black or white, man or woman, rich or poor, sick or fit, you walked every inch of Gambian soil, day or night, in all regions of the Gambia. The last thing that crossed your mind that time was you're going to get robbed, you're going to get mugged. No, it never happened before 2017. People walked freely. People went about their businesses. Tourists went about their businesses, black or white. Gambians went about their businesses, black or white, young or old, men and women, day or night. Gambians went about their businesses peacefully because we had a government that made you pay for your crimes. We had a government that cared about the security and stability of the Republic of the Gambia. We had a government that set examples for wrongdoing, prosecuted people for wrongdoing, punished people severely for calculated criminal acts. Now, we no longer have that because the president himself is more than happy to cozy up with reputable criminals. We saw somebody donating to the political party of Adama Barrow vehicles, a renowned Gambian criminal, convicted, I believe, donating vehicles to the National People's Party of Adama Barrow. We've seen drug dealers 3 tons of drugs, 500 kilograms of hard drugs, cocaine, several kilos of cannabis, hashish, several kilos of cocaine, seized repeatedly. Some of those drugs went missing in our law courts. Some of them went missing in the offices of the Gambia drugs law enforcement agencies. The criminals went missing. None of them were prosecuted. Why do you think these criminals are getting away with tons of drugs being imported into Gambian territory? Why do you think Adam Barrow's government is not prosecuting them? Why do you think they're not arresting them? Even when they knew who the importers were, or they went missing, or were investigating, and then the drugs will disappear, or we destroy the drugs. No evidence of drugs destruction. The drugs make it back to our markets. This is why our teenagers are now some of the biggest consumers of drugs in the sub-region. Gambian children are hooked to drugs, hard drugs. They're committing crimes to be able to feed their nasty habits. This is why they're mugging our women. This is why they're robbing our citizens. This is why our homes are no longer safe. This is why they're cutting people's throats over mobile phones, over the little bag that you have, over the little money that they've seen you withdraw from banks. They'll go and loiter around banks, watch who's going in and out, how much they've withdrawn, which bag they put it in, which vehicle they're driving with, and then they'll go and take that money, carjack, take your money, take your mobile phones and go with it. The government of the Gambia cannot do anything about it. The government is not interested in doing anything about it. Our youths, our teenagers, our girls, sad. Our girls these days are some of the biggest consumers of hard drugs in the Republic of the Gambia. Something that we never heard of before. Our young kids are taking hard drugs because they can get hold of them easily. They can afford them because all they need to do is go and commit one crime like the one that happened day before yesterday, where the European couple were bludgeoned, bloodied up everywhere. 8,000 euros gone. $40,000 is gone with it. They'll go and spend that money on consuming drugs. Adam Barrow's government is not taking responsibility. They do not want to police our streets. Barrow will gladly give the next high-profile defectee or an enrolled member of his political party. He's more than happy to give that person a brand new pickup truck than give 10 pickup trucks to the police to patrol our streets. The joint task force that used to exist in the Gambia between the police, the paramilitary, and the Gambia Armed Forces to keep our streets safe no longer exists because they don't have vehicles to go around. They don't have training to go around. There's no political or administrative appetite to get our streets safe because the NPP is profiting from criminality in respect of the vehicles they're getting from renowned drug dealers, in respect of the people who are supporting them, who are importing more guns than they were licensed to import into Gambian territory. We've seen the Ministry of Health, not the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Health losing 148 million. You think that money went missing? No, it didn't go missing. We've seen the Ministry of Justice sharing gratuity money that was supposed to be for the Gambian public, Gambia government, between themselves under Dawda Jallow. We have seen the embezzlement of President Jammeh's properties and material and funds under the Ministry of Justice under Dawda Jallow and Batamidu. We have seen how the Ministry of Justice in the Gambia, in connivance with the United States Embassy in the Gambia, taking prime land in the Gambia, 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer of prime land in the Gambia, which is a habitat for our primates, for our monkeys, and other natural wildlife that we don't even know. Because we see the monkeys because they're big and they're jumping around in the branches. But the habitat is for other microorganisms, other insects, other pests that were crucial to the ecosystem. The Ministry of Justice took that prime land and wants to give it to the American Embassy in the Gambia to destroy the monkeys, to destroy the mini forest, to destroy the other wildlife that exists in that monkey park. and the Minister of Justice came, instead of apologizing to the Gambian public, instead of promising that that land will not change hands and be given to the American embassy, he said he's going to deal with whistleblowers in the government who revealed that cruel contract that they signed with the government of the United States of America. A government or United States of America, I cannot remember which road or which university or which school or which institution the United States government established in the Gambia. They built nothing that we can tell. But they want to take 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer of our prime land in the tourism development area, turn it into a base right by the riverside to engage in activity that we don't know. We all know what American governments do worldwide. It's not a secret. We know what CIA and FBI do worldwide. It's not a secret. We know how they influence governments, how they participated in the overthrow of governments that they don't like. We're going to give them 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer of our prime land to set up a base where they could come from the sea, the Atlantic Ocean, enter that embassy without the detection of our intelligence services, our security services, our Gambian public. They can suddenly come from the Atlantic Ocean, from the sea, enter that vast land. Nobody knows what they're going to build at that particular premises. Nobody knows what activities will be taking place at that particular premises. We give them a free reign of coming from the Atlantic Ocean, like they're doing in Haiti right now. They've invaded Haiti. United States Special Forces have invaded Haiti. They said, oh, the Haiti government asked us to come and help them deal with the insurgency that's taking place. But isn't that what the people in the Donbass in Ukraine said to the Russian government? Come and help us deal with the Ukrainian government, which is basically carrying out genocide in the Donbass, the eastern, southeastern regions of Ukraine. And they said the Russian government is barbaric, is evil, is behaving in an imperialist manner, is invaded Ukraine unprovoked. The same American government is now in Haiti, claiming that the Haitian government asked them for assistance. Now they're going to take our sea. The American government, the special forces, entered Haiti by sea, special forces, with dinghies and boats and other things. We know what the CIA, the French intelligence and military, and the Belgian intelligence and ministry, and the MI6 did, militaries rather, did to African governments. You don't play by their tunes. You don't dance to their tunes. You don't go to their dictates. They overthrow you or assassinate you. They've openly, CIA has declassified all that information. They've done that to about 22, 25 African heads of states. And we're going to give them that big a base, 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer, to kill the monkeys, kill the palm trees, coconut trees. All those trees that are at Monkey Park are just going to be decimated because an embassy needs to be built. As if Gambia doesn't have other pieces of land where the United States embassy can go and build themselves. Tell them to go and develop the marshland around Joshua, or the marshland around Basse, Bond Road end. Tell them to go and develop it for Gambia's benefit and for their benefit, for mutual benefit. To rebuild Bond Road, which is being swallowed by the sea, because nobody's taking care of Banjul anymore, and Bond Road is disappearing under the sea. Tell the U.S. Embassy to go and take that vast mangrove land, redevelop it, reclaim it, redevelop it, build a massive embassy there and a shopping mall, shopping complex and office complex. That way, they can have a huge embassy, but at the same time, help the Gambia develop its capacity, its business base. Are the Americans going to do that? Have they ever done that in their last 40, 45 years stay in the Gambia? No. Name me one thing, one major project that the United States government in the United States Embassy in the Gambia built for the Gambian public. Name one thing, one major project that they built for the Gambian public. But Dauda Jallo, the Minister of Justice, who are fondly called the Minister of Injustice, corrupt minister, who took the gratuity money, Rohingya money, and shared it between his government officials. The same minister has given the American embassy that piece of land. The same minister is refusing to publish the list of people who bought President Jammeh's properties, which properties they bought, for how much money. He said, oh, we will breach confidentiality, but then you breach President Jammeh's confidentiality. They even went to the extent of selling President Jammeh's house in the United States. But instead of that money coming to the Gambian taxpayers or Gambia government, that money has gone back to the U.S. Treasury. So, President Jammeh cannot have his own house. The government of the Gambia cannot have his own house, but you're happy to take those funds and give them to your slave masters. Again, you're happy to take 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer of pristine Gambian land and give it to your slave masters. Your slave masters have refused to give you $3 million worth, $3 million US dollars, worth of a mansion. They refuse to give you that money back. And you're happy to take another piece of land which is worth more than $3 million and give it to them. 2 gifts to your slave masters, the American government. One, you're giving them President Jammeh's mansion in Maryland, worth $3.5 million US dollars. And now you're taking 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer of pristine Gambian land and giving it to them free of charge. If they bought it, we haven't seen the figure that they paid to get that piece of land. Dawda Jallow, you're very corrupt, and your ministry, you're very corrupt. Your Ministry of Injustice will pay for all these things that are taking place. And you better beware. But as I said, the Attorney General's chambers and the Gambia's judiciary is on the verge of being sentenced to death. And there's one case which is going to be ruled next week or the week after, or they might adjourn it until January. If the case goes according to the sources that I have within the Gambia government, that will be the death sentence for our Gambian judiciary and Attorney General's chambers. And it's about time all Gambian citizens got up and kicked ass, because Adama Barrow's government is taking the mickey. They're taking liberties. They're treating us for fools, because time and time again, they got away with murder. They killed 70 of our children, and we're sitting here. Omar Sonko died yesterday in mysterious circumstances, cut to pieces, and we're sitting here. Billions of our Gambian dollars have gone missing at Gam Petroleum, at NAWEC, at GRA, Gambia Ports, Fisheries Ministry, Attorney General Chambers and Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Injustice, Fisheries Ministry. It's been open confession. And even the current finance minister said they're not the only ones who are stealing money from the government. Central Bank is the latest scandal. We're sitting here and watching. And now the Senegalese government is coming to Gambian territory, shooting Gambian citizens and killing them. We have given Adama Barrow the last warning. We, the people of Fonyi. If Senegalese government comes and kills any Gambian citizen again, unarmed, I'm not talking about Gambian citizens who've got arms. If the Senegalese government kills any other citizen of Fonyi or any other part of the Gambia on Gambian soil, and that person is unarmed, there will be serious repercussions. And Adama Barrow, beware. This is going to happen. Enough is enough. But I wrote to ECOWAS, they didn't reply. We wrote to the EU replied. We wrote to Amnesty International replies. I wrote to the Ministry of Justice, they didn't reply. Wrote to the Ministry of Interior, they didn't reply. Wrote to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they didn't reply. Wrote to ECOWAS, they didn't reply. ECOWAS will wait until there's an unconstitutional change of government in Mali and then say, oh, you shouldn't have changed the government. It's an illegal government. We're going to sanction you. Guinea-Bissau is the same. Guinea-Bissau and Guinea the same. Burkina Faso is the same. Chad and Niger the same. Gambia was the same in 2017. They'll wait until there's unconstitutional change of government and then ECOWAS will intervene. But when you're highlighting issues that flare up tension in a nation, ECOWAS is not interested. Oh, we want to implement the recommendations of the TRRC. But you have people on Gambian soil who confess to murdering Gambian citizens. They didn't arrest them and charge them. You have criminals in suit that admit that $148 million is gone missing. We have criminals in suits who admit that they killed 70 children based on negligence, corruption, and wickedness. They're walking freely. But you want to go and chase a bird in the bush. When you go already got 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 birds at hand. The recommendations of the Janneh Commission were not implemented. They shared property between themselves. The TRRC recommendations will not be implemented, but the same people who were supposed to implement or basically be reprimanded are the ones supporting Adama Barrow today. He's not going to implement them. The same people who didn't retire their impress, they owe the government of the Gambia millions, thousands. They're the same people supporting Adama Barrow, eating, whining, and dining with it. This is why I said Adama Barrow is more than happy to cozy up with the crooks, the drug dealers, and other people who have a history, nasty history, a history of criminality. These people owe Gambia government a lot of money from unretired impress. They're whining and dining with Adama Barrow. People who were convicted of drugs offenses before, whining and dining in Adama Barrow. People who were caught importing more guns than they were licensed are whining and dining with Adama Barrow. People who had adverse findings from the Janneh Commission and from the TRRC are whining and dining with Adama Barrow. He doesn't care. In fact, he increased the salaries of some of them. The Speaker of the National Assembly, his salary is going up by close to $1 million. His chief driver, who is the biological son of the Speaker of the National Assembly, his salary is gone up significantly. My sources said Fabakary Tombong-Jatta, who is the Speaker of the National Assembly, appointed his own biological son as his chief driver. His salary has gone up significantly. The Speaker's salary has gone up significantly. The chief driver's salary has gone up significantly. Whether it's true that it's his biological son, sources have confirmed. 3 different sources have confirmed. But I don't know that because I don't know which son is that. I don't know which son that is. This is the state we found ourselves in. Gambia is in a total mess. We don't know where we're going to turn. There's a leadership vacuum. Barrow doesn't care about the crime rate. He doesn't care about corruption. If you do not threaten his position, he doesn't care. But when his position is threatened, he's more than happy to come out and say, oh, I gassed them and beat them up to a point where nobody told them how heavy a bag of salt is. If you're not Gambian, that's the proverb. When Gambians say, well, at least he found out how heavy a bag of salt is, it means you taught them a bitter lesson. They learned the hard way. So Adama Barrow stood on a public podium and said he tortured Gambian citizens, he tear gassed them, he beat them up, injured, maimed most of them, and he's happy with that. Since he dealt with them mercilessly, they've learned how heavy a bag of salt is, which meant those people who protested to demand that he step down in 2019, he tortured them, but after the torture, they realized they learned their lessons. He said it. But we're sitting here and watching him. Until we drown, we're not going to take matters in our republic seriously. But one thing I can tell you for a fact, we the people of Fonyi will do worse than what Bakau people did yesterday, because we'll come out and protest. We'll make an emphatic protest that will put a stop to the killing of Gambian citizens on Gambian soil by Senegalese forces. If a Gambian citizen is armed and wants to shoot Gambian forces or Senegalese forces, then what you get is what you deserve. And by armed, I'm not talking about picking up a stick or a stone. That's not armed in front of security forces. Security forces are trained to be able to withstand the use of sticks, the use of stones, burning of tires. They should be able to withstand that. They should be able to navigate that easily. By armed, I'm talking about guns that can kill security services. if you die with a gun in your hands, and it's not been planted in your hands by security services to cover their murderous antics, if you're carrying a gun genuinely and you get shot and you die, tough. But what the Senegalese army is doing, they're shooting unarmed Gambian citizens on Gambian soil, killing them with impunity, just because they can, just because they installed Adama Barrow in the Gambia, just because they're imposing Adama Barrow on Gambian citizens, and Adama Barrow will not have the guts, he will not have the temerity to be able to tell Senegal to desist from the killing of Gambian citizens, because Senegal installed them on Gambian soil. Therefore, Adama Barrow will have no power, no right to tell the Senegalese government what to do. They can do what they like. They can kill Gambian citizens with impunity. Nobody's going to be able to do anything about it. Well, we will do something about it. The government doesn't protect the lives and livelihoods of Gambian citizens. The government does not protect the properties of Gambian citizens. Gambian citizens will rise up, create our own formations, will fight back, and will make sure the government is refusing to look after us. That government is put aside, nicely, taken away from public responsibility. Because if a government cannot fulfill its obligations of protecting the lives of its citizens, protecting the properties of its citizens, protecting the livelihoods of its citizens, what's the point in having that government in place? So that they can continue to steal money in billions, defraud people at the central bank, at office of the president, at National Assembly. They're rewarding themselves with huge salaries. But there's no medicine in our hospitals. There's no security in our streets, not in our homes, not in our offices. Education is not working. Everything is collapsing. The energy sector is collapsing. Health sector is collapsing. Nothing is working under Adama Barrow. The roads they are building, halfway through building the same road, the first half that they built breaks. I mean, which sort of government is this? They cost us the OIC summit, a potential $1 billion investment, gone, begging. They cost us the Dubai port. Senegalese have taken that from us. They cost us the cashew trade, 30 million euros a year, gone to Senegal. Security trade, gone to Senegal. Energy sector, Senegal is supplying Gambia electricity when we could have supplied electricity ourselves, instead of paying Senegal premium sums to provide electricity that's not reliable, that's not stable. You call Adama Barrow a president and you want to retain him and you're not taking action against him. We will, if he continues in the current trend, we will stop him. Believe me, especially where Gambian citizens are being killed by Senegalese forces, unarmed Gambian citizens I'm talking about. We're not going to condone that again. It's not going to happen. And our APRC MPs are holding a press conference in Fonyi on Sunday. They'll make it absolutely clear to him that we've been clamoring about this issue since 2017, and Adama Barrow has been playing deaf, dead, dumb, blind, dead wood that the man is. We've been clamoring, making noise about this situation since 2017, after our citizens were killed by Senegalese forces. Our soldiers were shot and injured by Senegalese forces. Our citizens were kidnapped and taken to Senegal. Some were hurt, shot, bullet wounds. 10,000 people in Gambia in the region of Fonyi were displaced by Senegalese soldiers. 10,000 according to the NDMA, National Disaster Management Agency. 10,000 Fonyi people were affected by the war on 24th of January 2022. Displaced. So therefore, Adama Barrow's victim list has been ridiculous. There has never been a government in the Gambia that created this amount of victims ever, let alone in the space of 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're Gambian, the time now is to be a real Gambian, to be a patriot. The time now is for all Gambian citizens to come together, put a sustained amount of pressure on this government, mounting pressure. Sustain it for days. Show Adama Barrow that enough is enough. You don't wake up and take action. We're going to take action ourselves, and that, unfortunately, will be at your peril. No education, no security, no health, no agriculture, no fishing industry. All been destroyed. They've depleted our ocean and our rivers. A small bucket of fish, $3,500. A bag of rice, $2,000, $2,200. A bag of fertilizer, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000. A bag of sugar, $2,200, $2,400. Where are we heading? Eggs, oil, vegetables, potato, onions. Everyone that goes to government hospitals has to be sent to private pharmacies to buy medicine. You buy medicine from private pharmacies, you drink it, you get your kidney failure and liver failure, and you're dead. 70 children killed, 83 unofficial figures. We believe it's hundreds of people died from kidney failure as a result of medicine coming from Made in Pharmaceutical Limited, a company that only supplies Gambia as a national health service. They don't supply any other country on earth, only Gambia. And it's the same medication that killed hundreds of Gambian citizens, even though the government of the Gambia put it at 70 dead children. Corruption, wickedness. This is what's going on. You go to the National Assembly, nepotism, where the Speaker of the National Assembly appoints his own children. This is what we have. This is what's happening in our government today. Corruption from Adama Barrow himself down. But he cannot clamp down on this corruption because people know it's dirty. If people know your habits, you were not leading by example, people will pull wool over your face, your eyes all over. That's the problem we have now. Adama Barrow doesn't have the moral fortitude. He doesn't have the moral high ground. He cannot clamp down on illegality because he himself has been involved in it. If he tries to clamp down on these government officials, like the central bank, they'll say, oh, hang on, you're part of this because we gave you a portion of that contract. We gave you this amount of money for a presidential campaign last year. Dr. Samate could say, oh, the 148 million that went missing didn't actually go missing. Adama Barrow told us to take that money from COVID funds and sponsor his presidential campaign in 2021. I'm giving an example. I'm not telling you that's what happened. My suspicions are $148 million didn't go missing. There's no way the Minister of Health would have lost that money and the minister still in power. We know where that money went. We know who's got a cut of that money. It'll come out. Hopefully very soon, because we need to remove Adama Barrow from that place. Our MPs, unfortunately, have now been compromised because they've had a pay rise. The Speaker of the National Assembly had a pay rise. I cannot see our MPs instigating an impeachment proceeding to remove Adama Barrow because they've been corrupted now. Like the first parliament that was corrupted by brown envelopes and vehicles, this parliament too has been corrupted by being given massive pay rises when we can't even fund our education, when we can't fund our hospitals, when we can't fund our security services, when our fishermen go to sea and come back empty-handed, when our energy sector is dilapidated. Gambia Revenue Authority cannot raise up to 12 billion. So therefore, the $32 billion budget for 2023, where do you think the money is coming from? Why do you think they inflated that budget? The local government election funding will come from there. The increase of salaries at National Assembly and government officials will come from there. The covering up of central banks collapse will come from there. Several other things are going to happen. That increase in 32 billion, they're gone to about 7 billion more than last year because they depend on donor budgetary support from the EU, the World Bank, and other places. So now, where are they going to get that money from? They tripled our revenue base. We generate about 11 billion. The budget is about 33 billion. Where's the extra 20 billion going to come from? 22 billion going to come from? Budgetary support from international agencies? Going to borrow more loans to take it beyond the $80 billion in loan level, debt ceiling? Brothers and sisters, time to get up. Time to get up. It's time for us to buckle, straighten up, push our chest out, and kick back. I'm not saying the corrupt one, the bongs. In fact, Adama Barrow's corruption is renowned. The American government exposed him twice, said if you don't bribe his officials, you don't get your contract signed. Before, they said the contract awarding in his government was corrupt. But we know that. The European Union knows that. They're not giving him as much money as they did in his first term. They said they gave to Barrow more money in 3 years than they did to President Jammeh's entire 22 years. Because President Jammeh was not going to bow down to anyone and get screwed from the rear. He refused. President Jammeh stood up for the Gambian public. He was not a stooge. He was not a puppet. He was not anyone's slave. Where is the Gambian oil? That will be my next topic. I'm going to stop this here today, and then I'll come back again at another opportune time, God willing. This conversation is going to be a regular conversation. Tune into the press conference of the APRC MPs on Sunday. They'll be encamped in Fonyi. They'll be spitting feathers. They'll be reading the Riot Act. They'll be making it clear to Adama Barrow and his government that we are just about to mount a serious fight against his government to protect our Gambian citizens if he's not willing to do it. And he's being paid to do that. Adama Barrow has promised Gambian citizens everything except work hard. He's promised free Wi-Fi, that didn't happen. He promised to bridge Banjul Bara, didn't happen. He promised to build 60 mosques, didn't happen. He promised to build 50 hospitals, didn't happen. He said he built 800 kilometers of roads, never existed. He said he built 3,000 classrooms, didn't exist. He said he's going to create Wi-Fi gardens, didn't exist. Last year he said the whole of the Combo area, energy sector and employment will be the best ever, didn't happen. He said he'll create 20,000 jobs in the fishing industry related jobs in Combo South, didn't happen. He promised heaven and delivered hell. And Gambian people are living in hell because homes are not even safe. Burglars are now breaking in with arms into people's houses and threatening to rape people's wives and daughters in their houses unless they emptied their coffers in the house and gave them every single bit of valuable, and then they can disappear because the police can never make it on time. The police are not mobile. So now, our streets are owned by criminals. Our homes are under threat by criminals. Our public offices are dominated by criminals. They're all stealing. 300 million OIC money has gone missing. They're building roads that look like 20th century roads. Where are we heading? We're heading nowhere under Adama Barrow because we have a massive leadership vacuum. We have no direction. And we will not have any direction or true leadership until Adama Barrow is removed from that office. They are fed up. Simple as that. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I end this Facebook Live. Thank you very much.